The scripture today is from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verse 3. Blessed are the humble, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The Sermon on the Mount is believed to be the only complete writing of any of Jesus' teachings. Some biblical scholars believe Jesus had a carefully prepared text and that it fell into the hands of Matthew. The sermon begins with the Beatitudes. Our scripture today is the first Beatitude. All 8 Beatitudes begin with the word blessed. In Discover the Power Within You, Eric Butterworth explains the word blessed. To bless is to confer prosperity upon, to enrich. Thus, blessed makes a wonderful promise telling you what will happen if you condition your mind to the full acceptance of the Beatitudes. When the scripture states, "Blessed are the humble, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," 2 questions immediately arise. First, what are the characteristics of a humble person? And second, the scripture states that theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Not that they will go to heaven sometime in the future, but theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is in the present tense. How do we comprehend this statement? Regarding the first question, defining a humble person. In our culture, the word humble can often be taken in a negative context. In Webster's dictionary, a few definitions of humble are of little worth, of lowly condition or rank, a humble dwelling, humble origins. To humble oneself is to perform an act of submission by way of apology or penitence. In the past, some Christian faiths interpreted this beatitude, that being poor or lacking in your life, humble, prepared you for a better life in heaven after this life on earth. Another example in Webster's, using the word blessed as an adjective. Blessed, possessing or marked by the virtue of humility. The virtue of humility sounds like it may be closer to what Jesus was saying. But when I go to the definition of humility, Webster says the quality of being without pride, voluntary self-abasement. When we find these instances of scripture that may be difficult to understand, a good source to delve a little deeper is the Lamsa edition of the Bible. Jesus and his followers spoke Aramaic for the most part. Aramaic was the language of the church that spread east almost from the beginning of Christianity. Dr. George Lamsa grew up speaking Aramaic. He translated the Peshitta, the Aramaic Bible of the Eastern Christians, into English in the Lamsa edition of the Bible. When we look at the Lamsa translation of today's scripture, humble is footnoted as meaning poor in pride, unassuming. Unassuming. Let's try that. Blessed are the unassuming, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I feel this is closer to the meaning of the message in the first beatitude. When a person starts with an absolute assumption or an absolute conviction that they should have that car or those clothes or a degree from that college, it can become an obstacle to recognizing and appreciating what they do have and appreciating the opportunities that do present themselves. If we are always craving something we don't have, our mind can become occupied and fixated with these desires. The result is that we're not content or appreciative in the present. There's a huge difference between striving to better yourself and becoming obsessed with an outcome. A person might want to go to Harvard to get an education from a prestigious school. But when a person's complete self-image is dependent upon attending Harvard, or attending any other school, if they miss it and they view that as a personal failure, they're fixated on an outcome. It becomes an obsession. And all that person's net self-worth may be contingent on one specific outcome. There are many things in life we inadvertently, even subconsciously, use as our own measures of our own self-worth. It could be a relationship. It could be your job. It could be our family dynamics are not what we wish they were. it's easy to get attached to outcomes. The scripture is teaching us to be unassuming and not placing our pride, our self-worth on a specific outcome. It is normal to strive to find contentment to build a better life. But along the way, we need to learn to enjoy the journey, appreciate unanticipated outcomes, and smell the roses. Enjoy your accomplishments with humility and learn from your mistakes. In our current culture, we often hear the terms mindfulness, living in the now, and being present. I believe these terms are close to the concept of the first beatitude, being open to what is happening in the present, accepting the results of our decisions and actions. If we already have hardwired assumptions of outcomes pertaining to ourselves or others, we can very often be disappointed with the situation and misguided when making our future decisions. In the Olympics this past week, we witnessed many athletes who, after many years of training and dreaming of winning the gold medal, gracefully accept the outcomes of their events. There were other athletes overjoyed just to begin the competition. They were not official Olympics until they participated in official competition, and they were overjoyed to be called an Olympian. We also saw some athletes distraught. They were distraught, because of the outcome of their events. They did not win the gold. This goes back to the old saying, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. In our lives, what are some of the assumptions that might block our ability to stay present and enjoy our lives? And on the other hand, what might help prevent us from feeling bitter when we do not get what we want or get what we feel we are entitled to? Last week, I read an article in the Washington Post by Carolyn Hacks. It was titled, "Try This Mantra, No More Mantras." The writer submitted her situation to Ms. Hacks. How does a person raise their self-esteem? Telling myself multiple times a day, you are pretty and you are smart, hasn't worked. Antidepressants have not helped. My therapist just tells me to repeat a sentence listing my positive qualities. I am nice. I am a nice, flexible person. I'm a good friend because I am understanding and kind. But my self-esteem is terrible. I feel stupid around people who are more accomplished. I don't feel pretty and never have felt pretty. I'm hoping someday I will be able to say I am happy with myself. Mrs. Hacks replied, paraphrased, do you feel smart around people who are less accomplished? Pretty around people who are less attractive? This is one of the many problems with the comparison method of determining self-worth. The world is so vast and there's so many possible comparisons that it ends up being no more than another tool to confirm our own biases, in this case about ourselves. Carolyn urges the person to stop using self-compliments that use comparisons. Stop using stupid, smart, pretty, accomplished. Stop using relative values. She continues, your value is absolute. You exist, therefore you matter. No more than anyone and no less. Stop using relative value comparisons. I feel this is what Jesus was saying in the first beatitude. Blessed are the humble, the unassuming, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those without hard, fixed assumptions about the way their life should be. When we are mindful in the now, without the baggage of assuming the way things should be or the way we want them to be, we can mentally be at peace. Humble, unassuming in the now, open to what the universe lays before us. The second question, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. As metaphysicians, we believe heaven is a state of consciousness. Mystics from all religions throughout time have documented their ability to experience different levels of consciousness. Our thoughts determine the way we view and experience the universe. If we are always comparing ourselves to others, their accomplishments or their possessions, we are in a consciousness of need, wanting something someone else has. Or we might be in a consciousness of greed, gloating over something we have, they don't. Either way, we are drawing a distinction between ourselves and others. We are seeing everyone as separate. And discover the power within you, we have a further interpretation of the language of today's scripture. The word heaven comes from the Greek root expanding. Thus, Jesus may be talking about the expanding potential within each individual, within you. Heaven is the potential of the Spirit in you that is wrapped in your human nature. To be humble, unassuming, means to empty yourself of the desire to exercise personal will in the quest for self-realization. You cannot storm the gates of heaven. You cannot achieve understanding of God through intellect alone. Scholars of all ages have spent innumerable hours trying to rationalize or intellectually define God. No one has ever succeeded. Blessed are the humble. Blessed are they who can let go of the attempt to understand everything from an intellectual point of view. Blessed are they who are teachable, open-minded, receptive to the truth, willing to renounce preconceived opinions, prejudices, carefully contrived defenses, and entertain a new concept of life. To put it simply, could heaven be a consciousness that we can experience when we are not encumbered by our day-to-day concerns? It is said that Jesus taught us how to think and not what to think. The greatest spiritual lessons are those revelations that come to us naturally. Proverbs 11:12 states, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom." Looking back on your life and the decisions you have made, are there instances that still unnecessarily cloud your thoughts? Do you wish you had chosen a different profession, or married younger or later in life, or studied harder in school, or put more time and effort into sports or a hobby? Being able to accept yourself just as you are and see your value, unencumbered by the past, we can learn to live humbly with an unassuming attitude. The Beatitude teaches that our consciousness can evolve to new heights when we live in this manner. When you recognize your own repetitive, non-productive thoughts, consider this teaching from the Sermon on the Mount and allow your higher wisdom to redirect your thoughts and attention to finding value in the present in yourself. Be mindful of your own thoughts and feelings. Blessed and enriched are you when you learn to live in the present, not riveted on specific outcomes. For then you can develop the full potential of your intellectual and spiritual abilities. Blessings.